Well, I had the opportunity to give two presentations today, and they're both related. The first one was entitled Watch and Pray, for those of you who heard that. Watch and Pray, spending a lot of time in Matthew chapter 24. The title of this presentation is Watch and Fast. Watch and Fast. Now, it's not hard to figure out those English words. Those make sense. The words watch and pray are very common in the Bible. The concept is very common. And automatically you can understand why watch and fast kind of steps it up a little bit, because fasting oftentimes includes prayer. And so this is stepping up a little bit. I'm not going to show you a phrase that says watch and fast, like I could show you a phrase that says watch and pray. But let's talk about the concept of it. I'm going to begin by talking about four sections from the New Testament. Let's turn to Revelation chapter 2, if you would. Revelation chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. We're not going to talk about the term fast until the very end, but all of us is going to lead up to our approach in life, our approach to taking seriously what's going on, and maybe this can help you deal with what's happening in the world today. And of course, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help us deal with life. I believe personally, as you're turning to Revelation 2, verse 2, I believe that I can use the pulpit to talk about against sin, for sure. I believe I can talk about against political agendas. I believe I can do that. I believe that I as a pastor can do that. The concept of separation of church and state has been widely abused and widely misdescribed. And so I believe I can do that. I tend not to do that. I tend not to talk about those things. I tend more to talk about things of how to deal with life, and I want to focus on that most of all. And that's what I'm going to do today with this watch and fast. I want to show you in Revelation 2, verses 2 and 3. I want to show you a scripture I take to heart very seriously. I would encourage you to do as well. I think if you analyze it, you realize that this applies to you. As you analyze it, you would understand that when Jesus Christ read letter in Revelation 2, verse 2, talking to the 7 congregations, I would not recommend you focus on church eras or opinions of church eras. I would say look at the reward of each of the 7 congregations and accept the reward of each of the 7 congregations, because all the rewards are there for you. I would look for the mistakes they made and learn from the mistakes. I would learn from the compliments and to live according to the compliments. See, the church in Ephesus, in Revelation 2, verses 2 and 3, I know your works, just as God knows your works. He knows your labor. He knows if you're patient or not. He also knows that you, some of you in this room here, cannot bear those who are evil. Now, he's not saying that's a bad thing. He's saying that's a good thing. He's saying it's a good thing to recognize evil. It's good to recognize evil behavior. It's even okay to recognize people who are practicing evil. Now, all of us have a wicked heart. The heart is wicked. But there are some people who practice evil. And I don't think people practice evil every day of their life. Sometimes people practice evil and they repent and they do better for a while and then they practice evil again. I don't think Adolf Hitler practiced evil every moment he lived on the face of the earth. But if you evaluate his behavior, you'd see he practiced evil. Again, sometimes you have to notice what evil is. We talked about that last week, if you remember, about discerning between good and evil. It says here, and you have tested those who say they are apostles, but they're not. Now, again, for the record, this material today will help you deal with problems in religion, but will also help you deal with civil leaders as well. As you've heard me say many times before, back in 1995, I had a great awakening about the troubles of religious leaders. Some of you learned it before. I think I was about early 40s when I learned it, so maybe I was a late learner. Some of you may have learned it earlier in life. But I had a good dose of realizing that religious leaders can act badly. Now again, you may have learned that when you're 6 years old, now maybe 13 years old, maybe 16 years old, maybe 22. I learned at 41. I was a late learner of that, but I learned it well. I learned the lesson well. It was a lesson well learned. It was a lesson that really helped my life to bring me to where I am today. I could say I wish I'd learned it earlier. Why cry over that? I'm glad I learned it. I'm glad I learned there are people who claim to be leaders who are not leaders. They may call themselves an apostle. They may call themselves different names. The title doesn't matter. People claim to be big shots and claim to be speaking for the Lord, and they weren't. Just because they said it didn't make it true. Just because people believed them didn't make it true. So I learned, like the church at Ephesus, that some people who said they were apostles really weren't. And I found some of them to be liars. Whoa, Dave, you just called certain clergy people liars. Well, I'm not calling them by name. I'm not laying out their sins in front of all of you, but I am telling you, I have learned a long time ago not to trust someone who's a clergyman. If they do the right thing, I like it because they do the right thing. The title means nothing to me. A rank means nothing to me. I have found people to be liars. Now, I want you to not only think of that as religious leaders, but now we're living in a world where it's more complicated now. And some of the lessons I learned in 1995 are serving me really well right now. All religious leaders can do is slander you. And if they slander you, they can sometimes cause your friends to believe that slander and abandon you. That can happen, okay? So it happens. That's the worst they can do. Consider how bad civil leaders can do things. They can throw you in jail, they can fine you, they can raise your taxes, they can take your property. It is far more complicated now. And some of the lessons I learned back in 1995 and have been living a good life for all these years, now I'm looking back at those lessons and say, wow, it's applying again, and it's much more dangerous. And if you believe the book of Revelation, where civil leaders and religious leaders tend to work together, according to the way we interpret Revelation 13. If Revelation 13 talks about civil leaders and religious leaders working together to form the mark of the beast, you say, well, that's impossible. Well, it really looks impossible, but right now, do you think anything's impossible? Can you look at all the stuff that's being taught? Can you think of all the things that are happening in this world that you thought would never happen? I mean, the things that people are doing, the powerful people working together, whether we want to blame Satan or whether we even want to blame anybody. Just watching what's happened, do you realize civil leaders and church leaders can eventually work together to bring about the prophecies of Revelation? The point is, when I see leaders, religious leaders lie, I recognize it for what it is. When I see civil leaders lie, I recognize it for what it is. But then it goes on to say, you have persevered. So we all need to persevere. And you have patience. And sometimes we have more patience than other times, and some of us have more patience than others. And we want to labor for Christ's name's sake. And we don't want to become weary. That is why I choose the subjects I do, to try to help you, because you're living in a rotten world that has gotten worse. God is still good, his blessings are still true, his calling is still right, but let's look at things that can help us to deal with it. So that's section number 1. Now let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 20. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 20. Excuse me. In some ways, I could do a whole sermon on just this one verse, but I'm going to give it a shot today. I don't have time to take the whole time for this one verse. But 2 Corinthians 11, verse 20, I'll do it justice. I'll give it some time. But as we look at 2 Corinthians 11, verse 20, this will apply to your marriage. It will apply to your job. It will apply to the state you live in. It will apply to the country you live in. And many people recognize this verse. Some of us take it more seriously than others. You'll recognize that I take this verse very seriously, and I don't have patience for those who misapply this verse. And since you're very much like me, you have the same amount of lack of patience I have. You'll see what I mean here. Look at 2 Corinthians 11, verse 20. Talking to the brethren in Corinth, he tells 5 characteristics that they put up with. And if you're reading, he's telling them, well, really, these are tough situations to put up with. And quite frankly, we try real hard not to put up with them. Meaning, if you can get away from this, you get away from it. Number 1, 2 Corinthians 11, verse 20. For you put up with it if one brings you into bondage. I do not want to be in bondage. I'm in a marriage where I'm not in bondage. Now, obviously, many people say the husband can put someone in bondage. That's true. But a wife can put someone in bondage. That's also true. I'm glad I'm not in a marriage where someone's trying to put me into bondage. I'm also not in a job where I'm put into bondage. I have responsibilities. I answer to the congregation. I answer to the board. But I do not feel like people are trying to put me in bondage. Oh, I think in over the 20 years we've had a few episodes where difficulties did arise, but we survived those, and those are in the past. My country and state. Right now I live in a good state. I live in a great country, although I can see cracks in the foundation and I can see troubles ahead. I saw troubles happening in Australia. I see troubles happening now in Europe because of the oil and energy. I see troubles happening around the world where our military says we need to focus on the pronouns we call people, and we also have to tell if people aren't vaccinated, they can't serve. So we're focusing on those things instead of building a strong military, while China is building a huge military burning coal, which we're not allowed to burn. I mean, I'm just watching, seeing things happen, and it's not very wise. It's very dangerous. The governor of one state says they're going to cut out all gasoline cars. I had an article in Eye in the World 2 weeks ago that showed the math it's impossible to do. But I believe in math. I don't believe in politics. Anyway, this is what we have to deal with. So again, we watch people take us into bondage. The second one is people who beware of those who devour you. If you seek to devour me all the time, we don't have a relationship. If I were to seek to devour you, you shouldn't have a relationship with me. The third one, beware of those who steal from you, who try to take your money. Again, the church can beg for tithes. Governments can tax you to death and penalize you. See why it's worse? The fourth one, beware of those who exalt themselves over you. I used to live in systems where religious leaders exalted themselves over me. I am in no such system today. Don't expect to ever return to that system again. And you live in a system where your pastor doesn't try to exalt himself over you. And for all of the mistakes you may see in me, I hope you appreciate the fact that I don't try to exalt myself over you. That doesn't excuse my mistakes. Just recognize maybe the one good thing I do right. The fifth one is, I beware of those who hit me in the face. I don't have a relationship with people who hit me in the face. And it's getting worse. I saw a video I think it was New York City, where a policeman decked a woman, knocked her down. I mean, blasted her. You think, wow, that doesn't look really good. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. But did you know what the woman was doing? This happened to be a white woman, a young white woman, probably in early 20s. And there's a lot of young people today who are very aggressive. But you know what the white woman was doing? Spitting at the cop. So he decked her. Now, how that's going to play out in their system, I don't know. Because, we don't want people hitting women. And I've got a 7-year-old grandson. And the way I approach it in life is, I want to do everything I can to help that boy, but I'm in line behind the parents. So when I'm watching him, he'll talk about how people spit at each other in school. And my answer is, you need to talk to your dad about that. Your dad will tell you exactly how to handle it. Now, when my boys, I told them how to handle that if someone spit at you. Okay? But I don't want to usurp my son's role, so I said, talk to your dad about that, and he'll tell you how to handle if someone's spitting at you. Now, I've never been in gangs. I grew up in very middle class, very nice. I mean, I've been in fights, but nothing with hard weapons. I've never been anything like that. But I can tell you, when I was growing up, in my world a long time ago, if someone spit on me, it was go time, okay? Someone spit on me, we're fighting. Now, today, it means nothing for people to spit on each other. Well, this police officer now I don't know how it's going to play out, especially in New York City. I don't know what they'll do. But it's on video. He decked her. He knocked her down. He cold-cocked her. It's like, yikes. I thought, yikes. But then I heard she spit on him. I'm like, yikes, okay, what's going on here? But again, this is the world that's coming around us. People trying to take you into bondage, people trying to devour you, people trying to steal from you, people trying to exalt themselves over you, religious people will hit you in the face. And then multiply that by civil leaders. I guess you say, Dave, I thought you were going to be positive here. Okay, I won't spend too much time on it, but this is the world you know is going on. The next section of Scripture, Acts chapter 9, verses 23 through 26. Acts chapter 9, verses 23 through 25, sorry. Acts 9, verses 23 through 25. As I told you, I'm giving you sections of Scripture from the New Testament, setting up to the point we're going to make from the book of Esther. Excuse me. Acts 9, verses 23 through 25. This is the time when Saul had his road to Damascus experience. And the good news is here, we're going to have Barnabas take him to the leaders in Jerusalem. The members were not accepting him really well, and Barnabas helped introduce him to them. They trusted Barnabas, and Barnabas passed on that trust. They started to trust Saul. If you remember, I wouldn't have trusted Saul right away. If someone came up, if Saul were the one who put Mrs. Benedict into prison, and he stepped in church here, and someone said, what do you think of him coming to church here? I'd say, that's the guy who put Mrs. Benedict in prison. If Saul was the one who threw stones at Derek and called Derek to die, I'd say, wait a second, are we going to let that guy in here? He killed Derek. So, I would have had trouble receiving Saul right away because it's the trust factor. But anyway, look at what Saul was dealing with. Verse 23. After many days were passed, the Jews plotted to kill Saul. All right, my friends, there are people in this world, around this world, who are being plotted against in different countries, whether it be Kenya, Russia, Ukraine, Afghanistan. And there are people in the United States of America who are being plotted against. It is the world we live in. Verse 24, when their plot became known to Saul, Saul found out about it. Watching is, I don't want to watch in a paranoid fashion. I really don't. But I want to watch in a wise fashion. I want to see who my enemies are. If my enemy's coming after me, I want to be alert to it. So I can fast and pray, so I can talk to the Lord. Maybe I don't want to know every detail planned against me, because that might scare me. I'm talking about satanic detail plans. But if I know someone's trying to hurt me, I want to be smart to recognize it. I want to be smart to recognize that person's not my friend. That person's my adversary. That person's trying to hurt me, trying to hurt our congregation, or whatever it is. Well, the group watched the gates day and night to kill him. If someone's out to get you, my friends, I hope you're watching where you go. Again, I did say in the interactive study that the world's a different world. I think the numbers are being suppressed for crime that's going on. I won't say too much. Even locally, there's some cities that are having crimes more often than they're reporting. And you think, well, why wouldn't they report all that? Well, right now, I think we're really in a mess. And it could blow really big here in the coming weeks and months, either before the election or after the election in November. It's a really rough time. So I want us to watch, be smart, and recognize what can happen. And, verse 25, if I have to be let down a wall in a basket, I'm not afraid to do that. You say, are you afraid, Dave? No, I want to be smart. I've joked with what my wife says about me. And you've heard enough about my wife, you know about her. So if this is the first time you're hearing this quote, please don't judge her badly, because this is a compliment from my wife. My wife says, my husband's got more guts than sense. Now that may sound like an insult to you, but let me tell you, my West Texas wife does not like cowards. She does not respect cowards. So when my wife says my husband's got more guts than sense, what she's saying is, honey, I love you because you're brave. Just remember to be smart. And isn't that good biblical advice, really? Don't be cowards, my friends. but be smart. Don't be afraid to speak up, but be smart. That's great advice of what's happening in this world. So I can see myself, even with the blessing of my wonderful wife, being let down a wall in a basket. If that's the best thing to do, because I'm afraid or because I'm smart. And I'm asking you, brethren, watch, be smart. Acts 23. Acts 23. I want you to watch. Dave, you're scaring me. I'm sorry, I don't mean to scare you. And hopefully you read so many good scriptures of promises, you don't have to be afraid. Just be smart. Oh, I was saying that, like now, even at night, my wife will, when I'm working late, she says, don't be out so late. Come on home. Come on home. Well, actually, there have been a night I've been here working till midnight, and I'll text her and I'll say, I'm just going to sleep here in my office tonight. And she'll say, thank you, good. No, she doesn't want me driving home late at night. You know, just bad things can happen at night. I'm just trying to be smart. Just trying to be smart. So I sleep at home. Dixon's told me, Linda, I don't know if you knew this, Dixon's told me, he said, come over, we got a free bedroom. Make sure she knows that, you know, because if I come crashing on there because he invited me. But I'm good. I can sleep here and don't sleep, maybe sleep a couple hours and get back to work again. But over here in Acts chapter 23, verse 12. It was day. Some of the Jews banded together and bound themselves under an oath, saying, we will not eat or drink until we have killed Paul. How about that? They wanted to kill him. They wanted to get him. Look at verse 16. So when Paul's sister's son heard of the ambush, he went and entered the barracks and told Paul, my friends, if you ever hear of an ambush against me, I would appreciate you telling me. And I will do the same to you, for you. You know, we want to avoid bad situations. When the whole scenario there in verse 23, when they getting him to give a testimony, verse 23, and he called for 2 centurions, saying, prepare 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, 200 spearmen. His life was in big danger. Quite frankly, I'm concerned about some of our politicians on both sides of the issue. I'm really concerned that something hasn't happened yet. I'm not hoping that to happen, don't want that to happen, because that will unleash more fury. That happens all the time in third world countries. That happens all the time in socialistic countries. But my friends, we're heading toward socialism, and we're heading toward a lack of law and order. We've had a lack of law and order on our border for a decade now. Are we going to be surprised when it finally happens? If it happens this week, does that make me a prophet? No. It can happen any time, any moment. These things are happening. So I point this out because we need to be watching. You need to watch where you go. Now, I used to have a rule that if I went to a bad part of town for God, nothing would happen to me. And probably the city I lived at was roughest city was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, because I haven't lived in a lot of rough cities. But I would go to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, rough parts of town for the Word of God, and nothing ever happened. But I tell you what, I would not go in those parts of towns for my own desire. My attitude was, I'm going there for you, so I'm asking you to protect me. And, you know, Reg Killingly was shot, you know, in Peru. So I know a guy could have allowed me to be shot in those positions. But that's been my rule. My rule is, if I go there somewhere for God, I'm counting on you to protect me. If I go there on my own desire, I'm going on my own. But we have to be smart. We have to be wise. Now let's go to the book of Esther. Let's go to the book of Esther. And I'm going to spend the rest of the sermon in the book of Esther talking about that situation. We talked about 4 sections of the New Testament, and now we're talking about one longer section from the Old Testament, the book of Esther. We see here in Esther chapter 3, verse 1. The king promoted a man named Haman and advanced him and set him above the seats of the princes. So he was in the government, this man named Haman. Of course, you know the story of Esther, so you know about this guy. You know some of the things he has done, and I won't go into great detail about all of it. But here we're going to find a man in government working against the people of God. So I'm not going to be a bit surprised in 2022 that there are people in government who are working against the people of God. It happened before, it can happen again. I'm not going to name names. My whole thing will be if the shoe fits, wear it. And quite frankly, since I don't know everyone's motive anyway, I would not know if the shoe fits or not fits. I can watch behavior. I can listen to what they say. I can read what they say, and I can draw conclusions for that. But they might be having a bad day. Maybe having a bad month. Maybe, who knows, maybe they had a diagnosis of cancer, maybe they've got dementia, who knows what's happening to any individual. But I know that according to the scripture, Old Testament, New Testament, somebody can be in government and not be a friend of God. And a person in government could be an enemy of God. If the shoe fits, wear it. It's not limited to any political party. It's not limited to any identification. If the shoe fits, wear it. Verse 3, all the king's servants who were within the gates bowed down and paid homage to Haman. That's what the king commanded. This guy's in government. You worship these leaders. You bow down to these leaders. You submit to these leaders. But Mordecai would not bow down and would not pay homage. I'm talking to people in this room here who are, even though you are very kind, you will not bow down to people who are rude and inconsiderate. Because those are the kind of people I hang around. There have even been times when I've gotten in trouble within church governments because I didn't give them the respect they said I had to give them. I didn't treat them disrespectfully, and I did not sin toward them, but I did not bow the knee to them. And it's really best I not be around them because they want someone to bow the knee to them, and I don't want to bow the knee to them, so it's a win-win. It's easy with churches. Like I said, churches can just abandon you. They can just forget about you. Civil government's going to be much worse. Well, the king's servants, verse 3, who are within the king's gates, said to Mordecai, "Why do you transgress the king's command? How come you're not bowing down? How come you're getting away with it?" Now it happened when they spoke to him daily, he would not listen to them, that they told it to Haman to see whether Mordecai's words would stand. For Mordecai had told them that he was a Jew. Back then, his nationality was important to that whole scenario. He says, "A Jewish man, I'm not bowing down to you." Now for me personally, I don't view it as a nationality, but I will say this, as a religious person, I will not bow down to the secular. You see, there's a parallel, but it's not exactly the same. Not based on my nationality, based on my religion, my religious approach of worshiping only the Father and the Son. Well, verse 5, how do you think Haman was going to react? When Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow down or pay him homage, Haman was filled with wrath. Of course he is, because big shots don't like to be ignored. Big shots want it their way on their terms. If you ever even quietly don't listen to a big shot, they will get mad at you. If you quietly don't listen to a big shot, they'll tell the world that you're a horrible person because you've got to bow down to them. By the way, your pastor doesn't want you to bow down to him. You all can say no to your pastor over and over and over again. And that's the only way I would have it. Not from your shoes, from my shoes. I will not be in a situation where you don't have the freedom to resist my request. And that's you've chosen this system, you've chosen this way. Bully for you and bully for me for following through on that. Well, verse 6. He disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone. He was mad, but he said, "I'm not just going to get Mordecai. I'm going to get all the Jewish people instead." Talk about a vendetta. He said, "I don't like Mordecai. I hate Mordecai. I'll get Mordecai, but I'm going to wipe out his whole race." He had a vendetta against the people. The people, you can say the people of God or the people of disdain, however you want to look at it. Verse 13. The king's scribe called a get-together. Verse 13. Let's see if I can find it here. And they wrote letters And the letters were sent by couriers into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, to annihilate all the Jews, both young, old, little children, women. Annihilate the Jews. My friends, don't be naive. Civil governments have thought about annihilating people a long time. It wasn't just Pharaoh. It wasn't just Herod. It wasn't just the leadership of China who said only one child per family. We've lived in this country, now people in Kenya and other places have lived with rough times for decades. Our country is being introduced to what the rest of the world is dealing with. Don't be a bit surprised that politicians want to destroy some of the population. I'm not naming names because, quite frankly, I could not paint any name to it. But I'm not naive to think that there are some out there who want to destroy people. And who do they want to destroy? Well, they might want to hurt the rich to get richer, but they want to destroy the deplorables and the people they think are worthless. That the world wouldn't even miss them. The globalists wouldn't even care. Now you say, man, Dave, that sounds like a conspiracy theory. Look at history, my friend. Just look at history. Who are you accusing, Dave? I'm not accusing any individual. I'm not naming any individual. I'm talking about history, and if we want to blame anyone, we can go to the source. Satan, the devil, certainly wants to do things like this. But I'm not going to be naive. I want to be watching. My friends, I don't hang around racist people generally. But to our black ladies in the congregation here, I've been around people in the community who say horrible things against black people. By the way, they've been around black people who they've heard say horrible things against white people. We don't judge each other based on what not even our friends, our acquaintances believe. Am I going to be naive to think that there's not racism in East Texas toward black or toward white or toward Hispanic or toward Asians? My challenge is when they start talking that way, what do I do? What do I do as a man? What do I do as a Christian? Well, generally, I just get away from the conversation. Someone says, you should put them in your place. I choose not to do that. When they start talking in ways I don't want to hear, I just excuse myself. I just get away. So again, just because I hang around people here who do good things and people here who do godly things, you think that's the way the rest of the world is? We can be fooled sometimes by the people we hang around, the good Christian people we hang around with our little problems. There's people out there who are really sick. I sometimes even in my job, I have to hang around people who are mentally sick. Sometimes I have to go to facilities and visit people in facilities who are really quite sick and need help. And I really can't do much. I'm not trained to do much, but I can, as a pastoral person, I can try to encourage them with the scripture. But if you realize out that this world is sick, and so if people say there are out there people who want to kill other races, of course there are. Doesn't mean everyone's doing it, but there are people who want that. If there are people out there who say they want to control their population by killing people, of course there are. It's just not you. It's not me. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And again, the whole subject of abortion certainly does a big job of killing off a lot of population. There's a sick world out there, my friends. It's a sick world out there. Chapter 4, verse 1. When Mordecai learned all that had happened, he tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes. He went to the middle of the city, and he cried out with a loud, bitter cry. He went out as far as the front of the king's gate, for no one might enter the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province where the king's command and decree arrived, there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting, weeping, and wailing. Here's where I'm introducing the concept of fasting. Greater than prayer, because prayer is usually involved with fasting. My friends, if you're going to watch what's going on in this world, yes, there's fake news, yes, but there's a lot of prejudice out there. The world's built on trust. You have to find the sources of people you trust for information. Certain news media either they have agendas that are political, they certainly have agendas that are financial. You have to take that all into effect. But when you read about it, when you see about it, when you notice all of it, realize out there, it is rough. I want to find out if I need to be let down the wall in a basket. I'm happy for the Lord to show me that, maybe through my brethren, but I don't want to be a sucker. I don't want to be so consumed with negative that I get paranoid or I get judgmental or condemning, and I don't want you to be that way either. But I want you to watch what's going on. Not to be afraid, take a break if it's scaring you. Certainly we don't want to get into a condemning attitude, but this happened once before, happened many times, but the story of Haman here, he was wanting to do damage to Mordecai and to a whole people. So there are people who may want to do damage to a Christian or a whole group of Christians. With chapter 4, verses 4 through 7, Esther was concerned about Mordecai because she heard about it. Yikes, what's going to happen to Mordecai? What's going to happen here? Verse 8, he also gave him a copy of the written decree for their destruction. And he gave it to Esther, and Esther explained what was going to happen. And Mordecai said to Esther, you need to go to the king. You need to go to the king and stop this. And you know the story of Esther. The law says she couldn't do that. She could not go in there unless she was invited. She goes, I can't do that. And Mordecai's response was, you know that you're a Jew as well, and your number is going to come up too. So not only are all of us at risk, you're at risk too. And so he was trying to encourage her to do what was right. So verses 15 and 16, Esther then, she listened to what Mordecai had to say. He was a good counselor to her in the past. And in verse 16, she said, gather all the Jews and fast for me. Don't eat, don't drink, for 3 days or nights. My maids and I will fast likewise, and I will go see the king. I know it's against the law, and if I go in there, he could kill me, and if I perish, I perish. But I will take a stand. I encourage you not to be foolish, not to be confrontational, not to be condemning, but I am asking you, my friends, to watch. And I'm not only asking you to watch, I'm asking you to fast. We're in from some rocky roads. The Lord will see us through. People have been through rocky roads for a long time, and the Lord sees us through. But you know, people have gotten bruised when they've made it through. People have been martyred as they made it through. So while I am not naming names, I'm not even naming parties, I'm not even naming positions of government, I'm asking you to watch all of it, from the lowest level in your town to your state to your country. I'm asking you to keep your eyes open. Don't let someone take you into bondage. Don't let people devour you. Don't let people steal from you. Don't let people exalt themselves over you. Don't let people hit you. But if that happens to you, I hope you will fast and deal with it like a Christian.